Welcome to Pod Mavericks Presents After Dark. It's our game recap. Thank you once again for joining us on the second straight night of a weekend, no less, an early game. And the second straight night, the Dallas Mavericks come up with a loss, a 132-130 overtime loss. Josh Bowe is joining me. Josh, how are you?
I am losing my mind. My brain is. I can't take it anymore. You know that GIF that gets shared a lot. Well, not as much as it used to, of like Sylvester Stallone, the cat, the Looney Tunes cat, Sylvester, and he's like drinking coffee and has like 8 cigarettes in his mouth and he's shaking. You know that GIF? That's my brain right now. And Lord help me, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of this season.
Why? Talk to me about it.
Because this team just doesn't. If they would have gotten their doors knocked off in this game, no one would have, there wouldn't have been any emotion behind it. Because second night of back-to-back, they're playing a team that's a bad matchup for them. Granted, almost every team in the NBA is now a bad matchup for the Mavericks. But, second night of back-to-back, Luka and Kyrie both played 42-plus minutes against Miami last night. You're playing a team on rest. Both of the back-to-back games are on the road, so you're traveling. You're not at home. The other team is on rest, and the other team is like a good offensive team. And the Mavericks just gave up 129 points to the worst offensive team in the NBA. And it's like all the stars align. But then it's the Mavericks, and they're gonna make this as excruciating as possible. In some ways, they make it more.
Guys, this is Josh on the screen.
They somehow make it. I mean, they make some of this fun. You could argue it was fun. In terms of pure entertainment, if you're just like a pure fan, of course, it's more fun to watch your team compete in a close game instead of get rolled over. But as we view this game a little differently, and it's not trying to be positive or negative, but just in terms of covering it, fans get to be mad and turn the TV off and go about their night. We have to think about this game, and we have to cover it. And we have to do podcasts, and we have to edit the site, and I have to just pay attention. We have to pay attention in a way that people that don't do this work don't have to. And so it's they go through all this effort, and it's okay, well then just win the damn game, just win the game, because that'd be cool, win the game. And they don't. And it's just well, why did you do all
why did you do all the hard stuff? Because it was my understanding of the game. And just for full disclosure, my wife is at the Taylor Swift concert tonight, so I had, and it's been kind of my wife has an open weekend kind of thing. She's with some friends, so I've been doing a lot of kid duty. Haven't gotten to watch as much. And my understanding from looking at this game is that Kyrie Irving was spectacular. He and Luka sort of traded places from last night, where Kyrie Irving was really, really spectacular. And, Luka was okay. Christian Wood was interesting. And then there was some weird stuff where kid played JaVale McGee a million minutes. And, it's funny you say that about, not being, you have to keep your brain turned on when watching this. I would argue that we're kind of sickos and that you can't really turn it off even when you're watching kind of for fun. But that's a pretty wild way to end the game, because could you walk us through, the basics of what happened in this game? Let's, you don't got to get I get, but I want to hear about it.
So the first half is the Miami game part 2. It's, Atlanta scored 70 points in the half. Mavericks were not down by 20 because this is seriously one of the best offensive teams I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. And it's somehow being wasted on a team that is 5 games under 500, which is just I feel like I can write a column just about that thesis statement right there. But once again, the defense is abhorrent. There's just nothing there. There's no resistance, but they're still in the game because, like I said, they have one of the greatest offenses I've ever seen. And then, in the start of the third quarter, it finally looks like, okay, they're missing shots. You'll notice the Mavericks shot 10 of 38 from 3. And you're like, okay, here comes the night where they're not making threes and they're just going to get run off the floor, because we've been talking about for almost months now that this team is basically only in games because they make threes, and they're finally not making threes. Here comes the blowout. Atlanta goes on this big run where the Mavericks don't look interested at all. Atlanta gets an offensive rebound in a corner 3, and kid calls a timeout. They're up 15 with 6 minutes or so. I don't know what the time mark is. I could look it up, but basically there's about, halfway or maybe a little more than halfway through the third quarter, Hawks go up 15, and everyone, I swear to God, I think everyone was okay, here it is. This is it. Second night back to back. This game's over. And then they come out of the timeout, and the kid puts Wood and McGee on the floor at the same time.
I wonder if those two have shared any minutes before.
I don't know. I need to look. We can look. I can look that up while you're next time you're
when I go on one of my bullshit soliloquies. That sounds good.
Look that up, but it can't be much, and you can't blame him. It's actually like I'm kind of glad because entering this game, like they didn't do a lineup change tonight, and I'm like, there's part of me that's like, how do you not to say that the cure for the roster is on the roster, but how do you go through this prolonged stretch of losing and not mix up the lineups? Just to try something different, even if it's not going to work. Like it's just it's been chaos. They've just been doing the same lineup and same rotation for the last 2 weeks, and they're losing. So he finally, at least he does something different. And the Hawks, the lineup helped. I'm not going to say the lineup did not help. Like JaVale McGee scored 11 points and 6 rebounds. That's more in 23 minutes. That's more than what they've been getting out of their big men before that. Like Dwight Powell had 7 points and 1 rebound in 20 minutes. Like so even if McGee wasn't perfect, like just raw production, the Mavericks need that. So I'm not going to say they didn't help. It didn't help. But I swear to God, after the Hawks got that 15-point lead, they played some of the worst basketball I've ever seen from an NBA team trying to
Could you see like Quinn Snyder's like dying?
Yeah,
because he's an exacting coach.
Dude, they had about 3 turnovers after that got that lead that were like just passing to air, like throwing the ball behind them to no one there. They had a 3-on-1 fast break that ended in a turnover. They had a 3-on-1 fast break that ended in the worst alley-oop attempt I've ever seen. They missed like 6 layups. Like the Hawks played clown shoes, like kangaroo court basketball to end the game. It was unbelievable. It was like they got monstered when the Mavericks called that timeout. I've never seen a team take so many ill-advised shots. Like Bogdanovich was taking crazy like threes. I think I saw AJ Griffin take like he grabbed an offensive rebound and like ran to the 3-point line and took an off-balance 3. And I'm like, what are you like? It was like they were tanking. Like I swear to God, it was like they were tanking, and they're not. They're trying to win. And credit to the Mavericks though is they still have to score points. Like they still have to like keep up, and they did. And the effort level was obviously different. And the biggest thing was like they had Wood, McGee, Green, Kyrie, and Luka on the floor for basically all of the second half and overtime. And the big difference, like takeaway, is size still matters. Even if it's not good size, and Wood and McGee got crushed in certain spots on the paint. McGee gave up some really bad rebounds.
And that's why Kid has if I was to put a label on why Kid won't play McGee, it's that sort of stuff. And I've watched him do that his entire life. He just
one of the buckets in overtime.
Yeah,
one of the buckets in overtime was the Hawks just getting an offensive rebound right where he didn't box out his guy. Collins grabbed the ball and got fouled. It wasn't a bucket. He only made 1 free throw, so they got lucky. But like it shouldn't have happened. If he just did like a lazy ball, like he didn't even really touch him that much except for like with his arm. And it's just like that happened multiple times. But at the end of the day, like he still presented himself as an open target. He was screening pretty well. And the Mavericks just kind of got into it. And Kyrie Irving was incredible. Like one of the better offensive games I've seen from a guard in terms of like he wasn't abusing the free throw line, like just making shots. Like he did the Kyrie thing.
That's the he gets buckets kind of performance.
He put on the true Hooper Hall of Fame performance. Like
God, it's pretty to watch.
Extraordinary. Like the finishes around the rim. I'm like, wow, Capella guarded that really well. Like here comes a miss. And the ball just like rolls around and falls in. And I'm like, no one else in the league does this, like at his size, like the way he is able to finish. Like Trae Young scores, but like Trae Young gets fouled a lot. And it's like, it's not necessarily like Kyrie went to the line 8 times, but the way he was at the paint, you would think he would go to the line a million times. But he doesn't really foul hunt in the way that like maybe Trae or Luka or Harden or all of these other guys do. Like he goes to the rim to score. He doesn't go to the rim to get fouled, which I think is a big difference between him and a lot of other guards. And it was awesome. And he put the team on their back. He was the only thing going good for them besides Wood and McGee. Wood made free throws, but then they just couldn't close. They had the miraculous Wood play in overtime to send it to overtime.
Talk to me about the end of the game because keep in mind I'm regulation. I'm watching this thing.
Oh, regulation.
Okay. And our team Slack, our Mavs Moneyball Slack, is just blowing up with bafflement. And so I'm trying to. I see that Wood makes one and misses the second. So I'm on my phone and I tweet out the stupid GIF from the Truman Show. in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And I was like, okay, game's over. And then it wasn't. So what the hell happened?
So first off, Wood charged. He got to the free throw line. Capella was standing outside the restricted area for like a good second before Wood went into him. They called blocking foul, but we don't need to get into that. That's just how I felt. But
sure.
Some people thought he was moving his feet. So Wood misses the free throw, and he misses it so bad, like it kind of violently shoots off the front of the rim, and so no Hawks player can react fast enough to grab the ball. So what ends up happening is Saddiq Bey tries to do the tip out, and he tips it all the way out of bounds. They almost called it, and they actually called it a jump ball, which with 0.1 seconds left would have ended the game.
Okay.
But they went back and Kidd challenged it.
Clearly it's Saddiq Bey out on him.
Yeah, and so they challenged it, and it was out on Saddiq Bey with point, and they put the time back on the clock because it was pretty obvious. It was pretty obviously off Saddiq Bey. So he did the tap out, punched it out of bounds, and it, didn't go to anyone. So there's 0.4 left, and then, what's going to happen with 0.4 left. You're not going to shoot a jumper. Like McGee's on the floor. What do you think the Mavericks are going to try to do? They're going to try to run a play for McGee at the rim to get a tip in or a finish. And Capella somehow gets behind McGee running to the rim. Like, I don't know how it happened. And so he has to foul McGee on the shot attempt because McGee was open. Like if Capella doesn't foul him and just lets him go, I think McGee tips it in for the win. Like, he was open. Yeah.
Okay.
So he had to foul him. It wasn't like it was a little contested, but I really do think if he didn't foul him, there's a chance McGee finishes that play at the buzzer. So they do the review and they determine that there's 0.4 left on the foul. So McGee misses the first, makes the second to send it in overtime. And that's how we get to overtime. And then overtime, it was just two exhausted teams trading missed buckets. Sure. And then, Kyrie fouls Trey on on a dribble handoff. He fouled him. Maybe you don't call that play at the end of a game. Maybe the refs tighten their whistles. I don't know if that's called 9 times out of 10. But watching it, I thought he fouled him, even if Trey did flop it and sell it a little bit. And then,
sure,
Trey makes the free throws, and then 1.8 call a timeout. And I don't know if you saw it, but they just throw it to Luka in the corner. And he takes a really heavily contested three, and the game's over. So
Kidd even tried to limit their minutes tonight. Kidd there, meaning Irving and Doncic, they had to play the whole overtime, and so they end up with 44 out of a 50-minute game. But if you play a 48-minute regulation game, you get 38 minutes out of Kyrie and Luka. You live with that in a do or die game,
right?
And
so it's just.
God, they shot terrible from three. 4 of 18 between those two. And the Mavericks were in this while shooting 26% from three. That's incredible.
Yeah. For the first time ever, the fourth quarter and some of the third, and even overtime, they didn't get their doors knocked off in overtime either. They finally got stops. It was the first game we've ever seen them get consistent. Who
was doing the stopping?
It was just a combination. It was just the fact that Wood. It was a combination of the Hawks playing really bad basketball and taking some really bad shots. But it was McGee and Wood. The Hawks were killing the Mavs in the first half in the mid-range, just pulling up in those little mid-range jumpers from Trey and DeJounte Murray. And with McGee there, his length, they just stopped shooting those because they were a little bit more contested. And they couldn't score on the back line because I think Wood's wingspan not Wood, but McGee's wingspan clog things up a little. Now, of course, then the Hawks had crazy dumb turnovers that were unforced, and they took some really dumb threes. But yeah, it was just size matters, even if it's not the best size.
They just got them away. 9 turnovers as a team.
Yeah.
God. So, all right. So the reason I asked the defensive question is I have something I want to.
Luka nutted up a little bit in the fourth quarter and overtime guarding Trae Young. I'll say that.
So I want to show something. This clip made it around Mavs social media today. It's picking on Luka. I want to show it. Then I want to talk about it in the context of both this game, but also the Mavs defense as a whole. So I'm going to pull open this stream here so we can see what I'm talking about, and then we're gonna discuss it real quick here. All right. So we got. I'm not gonna mute it, but it's so Strus sets a pin down for Tyler Hero to flow into a dribble handoff with Jimmy Butler. Because Luka was guarding Strus, he's not going to be chasing him around, so that gives Strus an open pop in the corner, targeting Luka in off-ball actions. That was the point of this. So we're going to start this whole thing over here. We're going to watch it together real quick. And then I don't want to necessarily talk about this play. I want to talk about what this play means. Also, shout out 75-88. That was the score in game 2 of 2011 when the Mavericks decided to take the Heat to the woodshed. So, all right. So keep an eye on where Luka is. And so this play really made it around today, and I found myself kind of very frustrated. Not because of Luka, not because I think when you isolate one play, you need to talk about what it means as a team. Because honestly, that shit happens to Tim Hardaway like 30 times a game. He can't stay with anybody. Like, this is a team problem. So there's an effort-based stuff, there's scouting, and then there's adjustments. And one of the things that I've really come to understand the last several weeks is that when people have been like, oh, kid's not good at making adjustments. I've taken that as kind of a colloquialism, whereas what people are intending to say is kid literally doesn't make adjustments. And so I'm almost wondering if they don't watch that much film, if there's just, a very much an attitude of 1, 2, 3 Cancun. So watching this game tonight, when you mentioned, all right, I felt like that the effort was there. Could you walk me a little through of what you mean?
It went from guys getting blown by and dribble drives with no picks to like actually staying in front of their man for once. Like, and they still didn't necessarily get a ton of stops, but there was some pride for the first time, I feel like, in a long time.
Okay.
Like, guys were rotating, guys were staying in front of their man. Now, of course, like the first half, that wasn't there at all. I mean, it was the Heat game again in the first half. So I don't know what kids said in that timeout when they went down 15, but something switched, and like Luka had some bad defensive plays in this game again in the first half, especially. So, but everyone did. Like, again, like Maxey and Powell were terrible. They were awful this game. And I think something that's really funny is Maxey, Powell, Hardaway, and Bullock did not see the floor from like the end of the third quarter to the end of the game. And I want to, you could say it's a coincidence that the Mavericks played the most inspired basketball they've played in weeks when that finally happened. Or maybe there's something to that. But I noticed it. Like, the 5 guys on the floor in the fourth quarter and overtime were all, it's Luka and then guys that have been not in the rotation for the last 4 years. And what have we been talking about for the last 4 years in terms of the roster past Luka? And connect the dots there. So I don't know.
Okay, so I need to take a minute, be a bit of a company shill, and by company shill, I mean you and me. If you guys could take a moment and actually like this stream when that's going on, that helps us. If you could leave comments after the fact, if you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. We've had some people pop in and out. The more you guys do that sort of thing, the more it gets shared, the more the people who don't know who we are might stumble upon us. And as much as we might not want that for our friends to discover Josh and I more views is better for us eventually. Okay, so coming back to the game as a whole.
I got the numbers.
Sure.
Before this game, Wood and McGee shared the floor for a total of 43 possessions. So that's like nothing. That's like, I wonder how. That's like,
so how many games that's a half, maybe?
Yeah, that's
maybe
a half. That's like maybe a half of basketball. So that's
really
how much
slow half. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's about how much they've played before tonight. And then they played basically 23 minutes together for the most part. Yeah. So it's crazy.
Man, so walk me through why Hardy only got 13 minutes. I'm not really seeing anything in the box that tells me otherwise.
He was on the floor when the team was getting run off the floor a little bit.
Okay.
And again, they were down 15 and like Kid made this lineup change and he played these guys to the end of the game. Like he didn't make any, like he made almost 0 subs. I don't have the play-by-play, but I think on the television broadcast,
he played 23 and a half minutes. That probably hasn't happened in 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, the television crew said from like the 8-minute mark, like the 8:40 or 8:30 mark of the fourth quarter through overtime into the game, the Mavericks played Luka, Kyrie, Green, Wood, McGee, and then Bullock checked in for I think the final defensive play, so he played like a second. But otherwise, those guys played the final 14, 16 minutes of the game straight in a row. So, and then they kind of did a little bit of that in the third quarter. So, like those, like I don't think this was. I mean, he rode the hot lineup for the rest of the game. I don't know if this was like a Hardy did something bad thing. It was just He found the lineup that worked, and he did not go away from it. And I can't blame him. Like, it was
no,
working.
this is do or die. And
this felt like that fourth quarter. It felt like the team was like, we have to win. Like it was the first time in a while. It's felt like the team has played with the urgency of, oh my God, we cannot lose. And they still lost,
which is something. They're now 5 games under 500. I'm scrolling through. I don't know. They were 9-14 at one point. Because I remember I was like the guy at my Orange Theory. The coach was like making fun of me, and this is when I still lived in Virginia. And that was, I'm trying to remember if that was
about last season.
I don't know if this was last season. It had to have been the season before. My point being, I just don't know when the last time the Mavericks were this bad under 500. That's where my head is with it.
Yeah. The last time they were this many games under 500,
it's been a while.
Luka's rookie year, right? Since it's been this late into the season.
It might have been,
it's got to be Luka's rookie year.
Maybe year 3. Let me go look here because I'm remembering something off the top of my head.
And even this late into the season.
Okay, it was February 4th, and it was the 2020-2021 season. So the season that started just before Christmas with everybody coming back after the bubble. The Mavs look like hell. It was basically the first COVID season.
Yeah.
The Mavericks fell to 9-14 on losing to the Golden State Warriors. That was 2021, obviously, but that was 2 years ago. And that was when they really, that was the second half of that season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The second half of that season basically was when they started these 2 runs, first one under Carlisle, then the second one under Kidd, where the second half of both seasons, they basically just went on a murder spree, where in 2021, they won something. Like, I'm just looking at this, and it's like post All-Star break, there just aren't many losses, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Then obviously this last season, they lost something like 6 or 7 times throughout the rest of the regular year. Like, it was insane. And so we're kind of trained to think differently. And so it's being 5 games under 500 right now is pretty incredible. You had some numbers earlier, kind of or was it Ben Zadell of Mavs Moneyball? Was talking about the Mavericks' magic number, or in our case, tragic number, where they're officially eliminated. The Suns are beating the Thunder by 7 right now with 2 minutes left, which was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was really giving them all they could. If the Mavericks have hope, it's that the Thunder would lose out. Now, the Thunder at this point in time have a 1.5 game lead on the Mavericks plus the tiebreaker. If they lose to the Thunder tonight, and it looks like they're now down by 9. I'm sorry, if the Suns beat the Thunder, then that slips back to like a half game lead plus tiebreaker. And you've mentioned this, that you sort of think that there's still a chance that the Thunder just lose out. So it's like the Mavericks are not done yet. Like, that's the most painful part about all this.
No, they're not. I don't think they're going to be mathematically eliminated until the season's over. Like, it's just the Thunder after this go to the Warriors, and the Warriors do not lose at home. They're 32-8. So that's probably another loss. So then they play Memphis, and then they play Utah, and then they play Memphis. Those are 2 winnable games, and Memphis probably isn't going to be playing for anything. So they might be playing 2 teams that aren't trying to win. So maybe you give them 2 wins.
The Spurs rode roughshod over the Kings tonight.
Yeah,
that's the most interesting.
The Kings aren't. I think the Kings are locked in for the most.
But they also have pride, and their coach is a vibes guy, Mike Brown. Good coach, probably should be coach of the year. And I don't think they're going to show up and play the Mavericks. Is that game on Tuesday? The Mavericks, where is this? You'd think I would know the Mavs schedule, but I'm like clicking through. Do the Mavericks have a 2-day break between when they play?
Yeah, they do. Just play the day off.
So they're off Monday, Tuesday, because obviously tomorrow's the men's NCAA championship game. Duh, Kirk. So there's usually no NBA that night, which is why there are 13 games today. So the Mavericks play the Kings on Wednesday night, and if the Kings
second night of a back-to-back
for the Kings. Okay, so the Kings will be, they really might be. You're right, they might be locked in. Then again, they also might be interested in trying to win, just as many games as possible. Mavs fans should know better than to know how coasting into the playoffs can go for a team.
Yeah.
So, well, and everybody in the chat's like, the Mavs just need to give it up. We keep saying this. It's important to recognize that players do not tank. They do not tank.
Well, they want Kyrie and Luka to sit games, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, Kyrie maybe should for his foot, but I mean, if he's playing like this, it's hard to say, hey, we need you to sit right now so we can get a better draft pick. If I'm Kyrie Irving, I'm headed into free agency, and fuck you. Like, that's the thought in my head. So he's not sitting. And if I'm Doncic and I'm a crazy competitor and it's like, we need to sit so we can get a better draft pick, I'm thinking, fuck you. You should have built a better team than this. It's just not happening.
Yeah. And it's just.
Hey, can I show somebody something just to lighten the mood here?
Yeah.
Just to change pace a little bit here. Just this is why you guys want to tank. I want this to be clear here.
Yeah, it's so stupid. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No, because it's not a thing.
It's not possible.
It's like we're gonna find out that Victor Wembanyama is a damn deep fake at some point. Like this, good God, you couldn't do that in a video game. It would tell you it's not real.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But they're gonna. I think. I'm sorry to kind of change the subject because you're right. Victor Wembanyama, he's not real. That clip.
Sorry, I needed to boost that mood a little because watching him is fun.
I tweeted this earlier and I want to say it again that watching the Mavericks the last week or so, Kirk, you've watched 30 Rock, right?
Oh yeah.
The episode where Jack Donaghy wants to make couches and he decides to build them in an American factory and they come out like really, really awful and they're like used as a torture device by the CIA because they're so uncomfortable. And he's trying to sell it to some furniture makers, and he's sitting in it just dying. That's how watching the Mavericks this last week has felt. If you know that scene or that episode, I mean, it's just like there's part of me that's just like just end it. Like I'm tired of thinking about this team. I'm tired of seeing the same mistakes.
Yep.
I'm tired of like these games, like just a little more inside baseball. But when there's a blowout, it's so much easier for us. And I'm not talking win or lose. Like if the Mavericks can get a blowout,
we can assign stuff out. We talk story ideas. Instead, when it's down to the wire and they're now they played 53 clutch games. They are now 25-28 in those clutch games. It's preposterous. This has been the least fun season since we signed Harrison Barnes for me.
Yeah, it's just like if they could have given up this game in the third quarter when the Hawks went on that run, and I could have put my kid down and go to sleep, and we can like, hey, whoever's doing the recap can like get it, not have to rush something out. That's stupid. Like no one should feel sorry for us, but it's just like that goes into the frustration of us watching this team and how we talk about it. And it's just like they've had like 5 losses in the last week. That's like these are the season's over losses, and the season's still not over. Like they could still get into the play-in. Like it's not. It's just crazy. It's just so crazy. I've just never seen a team lose so many games, but also like they could have won them all. Like it's bananas.
Well, we picked a remarkable time to start a stream. Like that's what I mean, we didn't pick it. Like I would have started it a month ago if we could have, but it's just hilarious. It is simply hilarious that something this ridiculous could happen to these Mavericks. I'm not even really mad anymore. I have stopped tweeting as much during games because I'm really reluctant to like. They're just they're. I love live tweeting, but they're the team that does the opposite of what you think every time.
Yeah, and it's just like you, Kirk. They've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've lost 7 of 8. When NBA teams lose 7 of 8, like every single one of those games they could have won. Every single one of them was a clutch game. Every single one of those losses. Like it's just. This team hasn't had a blowout loss with Luka on the floor since January 5th. And this team is 5 games under 500. It's like they're the best bad team or the worst good team I've ever seen. And it's just like the only thing you can expect is they're going to lose a close game at this point.
Yeah.
But part of your brain wants to be like, well, close games, like Think about if they don't call the foul on, like, you know, there's just so many toss-up plays that have nothing to do with the Mavericks that in a close game, what if it finally goes their way? And it just doesn't seem to. It's just this is like flipping a coin 15 times and getting heads every single time watching the Mavericks. And you're like, wait, what? No, tails is going to come up, right? And it's like, nope, heads, nope, heads. Like it's bizarre. Just nothing lines up other than, you know, their defense and rebounding stinks, but they just seem to find ways to overcome it, but then not win. It's really like impressive. how can you find a way to overcome it this much and then not win?
So I have one NBA,
get lucky, right?
I have one NBA writer friend who I talk with all the time, and I just argue with him all the time. And I know he does the work because he watches everything. And I always say, it's like you do all the work. You're like solving a math equation and you do everything right, but the damn answer. And like, how is that possible? But that's kind of here we are. Well, all right. So we're at a firm half hour. We talked more about this game than we ought to have, but you know, we're the stream numbers have bumped up steadily each time we've done this. I really appreciate that. Again, guys, subscribe, tell your friends. I'll be doing the live show here on the top of the hour, the other live show, the participatory live show. And we'll hang out for a while. So let me get this up on our podcast stream, and then I'll be back to work in here. Josh, do you have anything before we go?
No, just nobody died.
Nobody died. Thanks so much, guys. We will talk soon. This has been Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe of Pod Maverick. Everybody enjoy the rest of your evening, and please consider hopping back in here in about a half hour when I host the live show, which you guys can join and talk to me about the game and about the season and anything else you want to talk about. I mean, I kind of want to talk about the TV that I keep that is piling up that we could miss, but no one wants to hear, you know, when I'm watching these days. All right, guys, see you soon. This has been Kirk and Josh once again. Appreciate your support.